Ms. Summers,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
Yes.
Ms. Rockover.
Yes.
And I think I grabbed everyone.
Okay.
And it was unanimous.
Great, so you're both on. So next we will be doing the approval of the minutes from January 16th first, and then we'll be doing.
I move that we approve the minutes of January, it's actually January 18th, if we could correct that from the
Okay.
agenda, and with the following amendments. Are you guys ready for this? Okay, so on page 1, under who's present, insert Tom for Tom Snyder, Chief Tom Snyder, Willington Hill. And insert James Knight, he's not in there at all. James Knight, President, Willington Hill Fire Department in person. I'll give, if this passes, I'll give the data. On page 5, again, insert first reference, Tom Snyder for the Willington Hill Fire Department Chief. It's halfway through that big graph at the top. And in that same line, there's a missing word that this will determine if everything will fit on the property. And bottom of that page, where it has my name and clarify that this is, it should read for a town meeting instead of the town meeting sometime after the January 23rd town meeting. Rather than following, because it sounded like maybe it would be that same night. I just want to be sure it's. And then top of page 6, second copy block there. It's my printout might be a little different than yours. Just wanted to get the titles right. Some of them are federal, some of them are state. Should be Congressman Joe Courtney, not Representative. Should be State Representative Tammy Nuccio and State Senator, not Representative Jeff Gordon. And keeping on with that, Congressman Courtney again on the next reference, and State Senator Gordon and State Rep Nuccio. And then in the following paragraph, first reference on who this person is, because he spoke up and he's not in the first list of who's present. CIP member James Marshall. And I put in parentheses attending on Zoom, because that's where he commented from, and we usually designate that. Do you have that?
Yeah, like pretty much everything.
Yeah, everything you're saying is.
Oh, it's in here? Oh,
Yeah.
did you send it over?
They were all.
Yeah, but don't I have to say it and read it into the
Because
record?
they were the originals that were
Oh,
sent.
I
Yeah,
have to read it into the
okay.
record.
Okay,
So just pretend like you saw this movie before.
Okay. I'm like, wow.
I'm sorry. But it is, I think it is that we have to do it this way. I'm sorry. So on the last graph of page 6 about how big the town is, I'd like to make the clarification, because I was the one who said it. It's not 38 square, it's not 38 square miles, it should be 34. So with your grace, I would like to make that correction for the record.
Okay.
And then top of page 7, insert 25 old farms before in the first copy block before property to designate the difference between 24 and 25. And in the second copy block at the end, that I noted that Willington 1's building, where building is missing, is 40 years old, and Willington Hills is 70. The 52 confusion was because I asked Tom Snyder, who was in the office or in the room, how old the hill was, and he said 52, and he meant it was built in 52, so. It's not a perfect 70, it had a couple of years to be built, so. And then, just, there's an extraneous word in the third from the last copy block, the word for should be removed it says before 4. And then the next graph, I wanted to designate that when the town does not deal with any payroll. It said for the emergency services, I was talking about Willington Hill specifically, because we do sustain payroll for the ambulance service. So I wanted to clarify Willington Hill there. And then page 8, whoops. Page 8 is nothing. Page 9, senior center staff, that's in the middle copy block. It should say the money last year was spent on senior center staff, not senior staff. And the last graph there was introducing a first-time speaker, Ralph Toulis, and comma, a local engineer, because we didn't have any ID for him. So just Ralph, we just had Mr. Toulis there. And then when Christina nominated me to be the delegate to the BOF delegate to CIP, that motion should be, or should clarify that she nominated me to be the BOF delegate to CIP instead of a delegate. Didn't say what it was for. And page 10, Ms. Mailhouse encouraged members to go to attend as many of the CIP meetings, just CIP needs to be inserted there. And then second to last paragraph on page 10, just the word "be" is missing under how the funds may be used. And top of page 11, first bold graph, it just says Mr. Callahan, who's Parks and Rec, has been named to head the Tricentennial Committee. And on the back page, last one, it should say the town of Ellington is leaving insert the words Household Hazardous Waste Consortium. Not consortium was already there. And I don't know if this is what this meant, but Pete said something about currently the town shares 5,500, of which it receives a 5,000 cut because people bring hazardous waste to the town. Does that mean outside people bring it in?
No, that means we host the facility.
We host the facility, so they
They take
give
$5,000
us forgiveness for out
for
of town.
hosting the facility.
Okay. So I don't know what change should be there, because people, I would just leave it that way, or else change it to host the facility. Sorry.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, can we have a motion to adopt those changes to the minutes of?
I move to adopt the minutes with those changes, if people are in agreement, if there's any.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, Lisa?
Roll call vote, Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Ms. Summers,
Yes.
Ms. Mailhouse,
Yes.
Ms. Miller. Yes. Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Rothazer,
Yes.
all in favor.
All right. Now we move on to the minutes from February 1st, 2024. Do you have any motions regarding that?
I move to
Change.
approve them with just 3 changes.
Okay.
And who's there? This name gets butchered all over the place. Karen Ann Caldwell, her first name is Karen Ann, one word, the A is capitalized. And page 5. This is just a wording thing. It's the second to the big copy block right before the bottom. It says, Ms. Caldwell explained instead of explaining that that finding of director. So explain that. Is that change? And I think just to clarify, because it's we're talking about co-directors and everything under the library on page 6, it's the 3rd graph down. Toward the end of that graph, it talks about asking about the salary for I think we should add the phrase previous full-time director who left the position. You have who left the position already, just to clarify, because it's been a while. since he's been here and I thought it was confusing. That's it.
Nope, I saw another one.
Oh, yeah, you saw that.
Yes. First page under, where it says call to order. Lawler and call, those run together, we need to separate it.
Space.
Oh,
Thank
they're
you.
separated on mine.
Shame on you, you missed that.
No, it's already separated.
Oh, really? Mine it's not.
I'll check it.
That's the grill one.
All right, can we have a motion to adopt those with the changes that were reported?
I'll
No, I-
second it. Did you
okay.
make it?
Yeah,
Yeah, when you said it, okay.
Lisa?
And a roll call vote, and Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Summers,
yes,
Ms. Rothhausen,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
and Ms. Melhouse.
yeah.
And we're all in favor, unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Next we go into, present to speak. Do we have anybody who is present to speak this evening? Yes,
Hi, Peter Lopinchich, 97 Trapp Road. I want to thank the board and the town staff for their diligent pursuit of our budget process. I did want to address the board tonight on a serious concern and then two requests that I would make of you. My concerns, I think, all our concerns, and that's the state of the economy, which is not good. Not really surprised to hear that. All of our Connecticut economists have stated that we have not recovered from the last recession, unlike the Boston and New York markets. We have not recovered those jobs, and we have not achieved the level of growth that we had at that time. Compounded by COVID, compounded by our crumbling foundations situation. Willington is part of a weak Connecticut economy that right now is masked by the state that's flush with COVID funding from federal government, but of course that's disappearing. And we're gonna be impacted by that as well. So with that sobering situation, my concern is that our grand list, which is growing by a paltry 1%, is facing a approximately 4.5% inflationary increase. So it almost seems like we're starting in the hole, so to speak. Now, I know the response always is that, well, we're going to, apply revenue and other sources of funding. And that would be my first request. I strongly urge the Board of Finance to focus on the expenditure side of the budget. That, in the infinite wisdom of our forefathers, is how we vote on the budget. We vote on the increase in spending or decrease, which of course would never happen, but that's what we vote on. And I ask you to focus your efforts there. A 4.5% increase to sustain current services is approximately $900,000. That's a serious increase in our $20 million operating budget. So I have concerns about that. At the same time, Willington taxpayers are being buffeted by all these economic forces that are not good. Lastly, I wanted to also encourage the board to focus on the CIP portion of the budget where there has been much discussion. I'm very pleased to see that the $1 million a year is being set aside for the educational improvements, and I think the whole town supports that. What I was trying to understand at the CIP meeting before the one they just had was how that was going to be sustained as we move out over a period of time. And I hope that I hear more discussion about that, as well as how we approach bonding for the large projects that are being discussed at their meetings. One of the things that I would share as a senior citizen observing this process for a long time is that this town moves slowly and methodically in approaching spending. And I think that's positive. And I would encourage you, as you get these large CIP requests, to spread them out over a period of time. Not to fund them all simultaneously, which is the way it sounds when you're sitting out here. And recognize that, for example, when we built the library some 13 years ago, I know it sounds insignificant now, but $3.5 million was a large ask of the town, and the town stepped forward to do that. One of the commitments the town made back to its citizens was we would not start new major capital projects until that bond was retired. That's not far away. It's approximately 2 years, I believe. So it would be nice to see the next bonding phase begin when that bonding phase ends. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your concern as well, Peter. Do we have anybody else for present to speak? Yes,
Alex Moore, Chief of Willington Fire. I just want to make sure that I had all the reports that everybody had requested from last week's sent in. If I'm missing something, I know Stephanie had sent us an email yesterday that I have not had a chance to get done, but it will get done.
Ambulance payroll update, yeah.
Yes, that's the other part of my, when we're referring to the paid staff, if we could not just say ambulance service, it makes it sound like it's two separate organizations. They are firefighter EMTs, who do drive fire trucks just as much as they drive an ambulance. If we should just try to remember that. Thank you.
thank you. And do we have anybody else for present to speak? Okay, so we will go on to old business. First under business is to approve the 2024 to 25 budget letter for the town departments. Everybody should have a copy of this letter. And is there anybody who has any questions regarding it or comments?
One comment I would make that I'm already seeing as a trend as far as the way the budget writers are reading this is if we could at all, I don't even know if this is a problem to state it this way, but I think if we could use the business manager's template for the numbers and keep with that, that's helpful to the board. Because it does show line item percentage changes and dollar changes year over year, which is easier for us to look at when we're reviewing budgets than it is. We've had a few who have cut those columns out. I don't know if they, in their own templates, the way they were presented, I've seen it in 2 or 3 of the budgets presented so far. Where that's not readily apparent. I just think it's a tool that's easier for us when we're looking at tons of numbers during this period of the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too, that it would be easier if we had one form that's used by all of the departments so that we're able to go over everything. Because I know a couple of departments last week were missing, I believe, the percentages that the,
Yeah,
That's what I
the
mean.
Willington one and Willington Hill.
yeah,
So you want it on, not on the same form, but their own on a separate piece of paper?
Yeah, but don't you send them sort of a template like
I
an
did,
Excel?
everybody gets an Excel template.
So I think everybody uses their own. That's why I don't want to gyrate everyone. But I think maybe we can just teach them how to put those columns in or something, or we can adapt to that because it's just a sort of at a glance that you can see they usually give it somewhere in the bottom line. But sometimes you really have to hunt for it in different formats. And it's a total, it's not a line by line. And then the year over year dollar increase is important too, because in some cases it might be a small percentage increase, but it's thousands of dollars. And so that's helpful to see too. So,
Anybody else have any comments on the letter? None. Do we have a motion to adopt it or accept it?
Well, it's already out, right?
It's already out, yeah.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to accept it.
Oh, second it.
Lisa,
Roll call vote, Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Millhouse,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
yes.
Ms. Summers,
yes,
Ms. Rothhausen,
Yes.
and Mr. Ross.
Yes.
And all in favor unanimous.
Thank you. Number 2 under old business is discussion regarding the 2024 to 25 budget calendar. We've already had one change made to it to accommodate the Board of Education. And, let's see, Christine, you had wanted to discuss, something that you're in need of as well.
Yeah, so the March 7th, I'm on vacation that week. And so that's when the capital improvement plan is supposed to be presented. I'm not sure that we're gonna have one ready to be presented at that point anyway. Next week is when we've heard all the requests, and next week we're actually gonna take our first look at the big plan with all the funding sources in it. We know that the math is not mathing, as they say. So I don't think it's gonna be that simple, and probably gonna take us a little bit of time so I don't know if it makes sense to put that off at least a week. I know we're doing appropriations here on the 21st. Basically, there's one number in the whole CIP plan that feeds into the Board of Selectmen's budget. So that number, usually typically it changes right up until the last minute when we do the appropriations. So, I don't know, I guess I would request that we have the CIP discuss, full discussion on the 14th, and maybe by then we'll have a much better idea anyway. And I'll actually be here.
and then so that probably means we'll need to sort of ink in March 28th that says only if needed,
Yeah,
because discussions might take more than.
I hope to be out of town that day.
Oh, really? On the
I mean, if we have to have a meeting, I'll
on the
I'll
if
stay in
needed.
town, but I hope to be out of town. But I mean, we wouldn't decide that until the 21st anyways, just seeing how the meetings would run,
Right,
correct? Okay.
right.
and I think, I mean, on the 7th, you could do discussions. And then, CIP kind of comes in on the 14th. With the,
I think it'd be a good idea to have you here for the discussion stuff.
oh,
I
Okay,
do too.
so, I mean, we could just do
Okay.
the revenue presentation.
okay, you can still discuss.
Okay, that's, just a matter of 5 minutes.
Okay,
So if you want to, on the 14th, just give me a minute or two and I can walk you through that pretty quickly.
okay, so we don't have to have a meeting on the 7th then, because then guess what, I'll go away on that week then.
Yeah. I would zoom in, but I can't.
Right, so, everybody's all right with that change, so would we send that to Robin?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
What change are we talking about exactly? Like doing CIP on the 14th
yeah, we would
and
do
then,
CIP on the 14th, and we would do the revenue presentation on the 14th as well instead of the 7th. But
okay,
we would not have a meeting on the 7th.
okay. I'm wondering if we should consider an extra date or something, if both the 7th and the 28th are out, those are, that's two kind of big dates in the home stretch.
Well, the
I'm thinking
28th
we may have to add
is if
something.
needed, so.
Right, but I'm just saying, when are we're really cutting out discussions by doing, I understand why we're doing it,
Mhm.
but we're cutting out the whole discussion process, and it's not an easy year, I don't think. I mean, that's the meat of what we're doing all this preparation for. So,
Oh, your capital improvement plan, how long does that take? I mean, each year.
It depends. Normally, so what we need to know and approve, at this point is just year one. And we really try to make year one really work with, the different funding sources. It's sort of like putting a puzzle together. But we have some big asks this year, so, it depends how much people want to talk about that, basically. What, I don't know, what do you think, Pete?
It could be a long discussion, but I don't know. Particularly
Yeah.
with big asks,
Yes,
particularly after last night,
yeah,
that's,
yeah, those aren't year one asks, though.
all right, so,
I mean, just
yeah.
the 1.5 million is a year one ask, but,
So are you suggesting to push the discussions up another week, and then the appropriations on the 28th?
Could anybody?
I kind of am, I'm just thinking, you kind of need a full night of discussion, and we've lapsed over onto appropriation night before. I'm just kind of going on my experience, which isn't 10 years, but it's,
Could
six.
anybody do 2 meetings in 1 week, a Tuesday meeting and a Thursday meeting?
maybe.
I wouldn't have an objection.
I can't do Tuesdays, but
Then
that's
that
just me,
idea,
that's just me.
we would want you here for the discussions.
Well, thank you, business manager. Maybe we could not take time trying to figure this out now, but
I mean, maybe if you meet on the 7th, I won't be here, that's okay. But at least get some of the discussion going, so, because what happens at these meetings is you end up talking about things and then asking questions and needing to think things through. And then at the next meeting, you talk about it again. So maybe like getting some of that stuff out so that whoever needs to do the research can be doing it.
yeah, because you go back for other, follow-up.
And then after next week's, when we hear the selectmen's budget, we'll have a better idea of the overall, what we're looking at. I know what Peter was saying, what Tim was saying, the 4%, I don't know where, if
I don't
that's,
know where that's coming from.
yeah. But maybe it's coming from the selectmen, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
um,
I haven't heard that figure either.
so I'm just curious what it is. We're all curious, but we'll know next week.
4% was that was the, 4.5, that was
Yeah, I heard
the
at one of these
inflation.
meetings as an inflationary rate.
Huh.
The inflationary rate was.
Yeah, what's the-
4.5, like.
Seems a lot higher, but.
Yeah.
Not what I
I've
was-
heard 3.5.
It. yeah.
Well,
Gotta
the
be
first
careful about what
the
the
first
source is on that.
sticker shock moment we always have is when Donna gives us the whole thing and we see all the different increases, one is 3%, one is 4%, and then what that actually means. When we see that, that's when we say, oh, okay, something's gotta change. What is it? And that's the discussion, so.
The other number that he gave you that I have also heard is the 1% raise in the grant. That was the number I heard from, I believe, the assessor.
You just saved Donna 5 minutes.
Yes.
So now we're thinking
So-
of keeping the seventh. And opening discussion on the seventh. Moving CIP to the 14th and splitting discussion between the seventh and 14th.
Yeah, I think that would be good, just to start it. Some of it's gonna be real easy. Might as well get that over with.
I agree with that.
Right, so discussions on the 7th.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds quite reasonable to me.
Do you guys, Jason, Melissa?
Yeah. And then capital improvement plan and revenue presentation would be on the 14th, along with the rest of the discussion.
Or does it, since the revenue presentation is fairly brief, it lays the framework, it like gives us the context of what we're discussing. Can we go ahead and keep that on the 7th if we're gonna meet anyway on the 7th? Or is that okay?
Yes.
I mean,
think
are
that
you
would be
okay
good. Then you could do the mill rate exercise,
Yeah.
you'll have all the numbers to do that at that point.
Mhm.
Okay, so what we're looking at is March 7th meeting would be the beginning of the discussions plus the revenue presentation. Thursday, the 14th would be the continuation of the discussions and Christina's CIP report. Do we have a motion to accept those changes to the calendar?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Lisa?
Roll call vote, Christina,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
and Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
and Ms. Summers,
Yes.
and Ms. Rothhauser,
Yes.
and Mr. Ross.
Yes.
All in favor, motion passed unanimously.
Fantastic. And now we go on to new business, and we'll start with the budget request presentations of the elected officials and the commissions. First up, A is 0121, Atala Mansfield Probate District. And the finance office will be presenting that.
Yes, so the probate court district is made up of 4 towns. The 4 towns are Mansfield, Howard, Willington, and Coventry. The office is in the town of Tolland. And the 4 towns pay to support the office. And the cost is allocated amongst the 4 towns by grand list. So the grand list is due to OPM on January 31st, unless you request an extension. And the town of Coventry requested an extension. So their grand list number will be ready on February 28th. And on the 28th, the Tolland office will divide up all the grand lists and give us our share. So this year, our share is $3,976. And we'll know what our new number for next year is right around February 28th.
Do you have any intel?
No
About-
one tell. So if they are doing something like an office, like buying something new for the office, then, last time they did that, they asked us, ahead of time, they told us, and they said, oh, we're gonna have a little bit more of an increase because we needed such and such for the office. But I know of nothing unusual that they need. So my guess, a little bit of an increase, right around $4,000.
And that job's open because she's retiring, right? At
I-
age 70?
I don't know.
It's a required, statutorily required.
Either the,
Yes,
is it the primary or is it with the general?
I'm sorry.
The election for, is it during the
No.
primary or is it during the general? for
We
the-
haven't heard yet what the governor's gonna do, but we made a suggestion to have the election for the new probate during our general election in November. So it wouldn't be a standalone special election. We don't have word yet.
Okay.
And she is retiring due to age.
And that really shouldn't affect the budget, should it? Yeah,
No, but I
Yeah.
just wondered if that's part of their, you know. It's not really, it's the grand list that's driving. I'm just wondering what's going on with the lateness, but that's all.
What's going on
You didn't
with the
have
lateness?
intel on that.
Oh, intel on the Y.
The grand
Coventry
list being late.
extension? I don't know, one year we needed an extension, I don't know what's going on in the town of Coventry. You know.
Oh, is it Coventry or Tallinn?
It's Coventry that,
Oh,
that took
okay.
the extension, yeah, I feel bad for them, I'm sure they're working hard. I remember when Willington took an extension of
Okay,
filing their grand list, I'm sure it's a stressful time for the assessor. And, we'll get our number in a couple of weeks,
okay.
and all will be well.
I misread it because it said Coventry is asking for an extension. Tallinn will not have their grand list number. So I thought that
Yes.
meant Tallinn's grand list number.
No, they're on the ball, theirs is in.
It's Coventry's, sorry.
Anybody else have any questions or answers regarding the probate? Nope. So we will be moving on now to the under new business 0126, Register of Voters, Christine.
Yes. I'm Christine Sothis, Registrar of Voters. I don't know if Suzanne is on the line. I can't see. She might be. No,
It is us then.
there,
Us and, no last name.
is she there? Anyway. I'll
She's the one
start.
true Suzanne.
I also just want to introduce, my deputy, Chiquita Lyons, and Suzanne's deputy is Kathy McCall. At our budget presentation in February 23rd, 2023, we mentioned that early in-person voting was going to start in Connecticut. In the early days of 2023, we didn't have much information and what this was going to look like, specifically regarding the number of days or hours involved. I believe it was at the March 9th, 2023 Board of Finance meeting that there was a discussion to place $15,000 in the board's contingency fund to provide gifts of early voting. Last fall, we learned that the state was providing a grant in the amount of $10,500 to all Connecticut municipalities for costs related to implementing and conducting early voting during the presidential preference primary that will be held on April 2nd. We applied for that grant and we did receive the money. Today, we're getting a clearer picture of how early voting and same-day registration will affect our jobs. To quote Secretary of State Thomas, the most important thing to understand that is often misunderstood is that with the advent of early voting, the job of registrars is changing significantly. So just to give you folks a little visual on the early voting days that are coming up. For the presidential preference primary, we're gonna have 4 days. If there needs to be a primary in August, that will be for 7 days. And for the general election in November, it will be 14 days. On the back of the calendar, you'll see the specific days and the hours that our office will now need to be open. So the number of hours that will be increased for a presidential preference primary will be 32. The August primary will be 64. And for the general election in November, it'll be an additional 120 hours for us to work. We currently average 50 hours a month. So just for the general election, that's over 2 months worth of additional work in 14 days. So as you can see, in our proposed budget, The greatest increase is in the new line item 0126-116 early voting salary. In the budget detail, this line item is broken down for the registrar's stipends and the election official's salary for working during these days. At this time, there's no indication that any additional funding from the state will be forthcoming to aid town with early voting and same-day registration costs. So I hope you folks have had a chance to look at our budget. And if you've got questions, I may be able to answer.
I have a quick question. How many people do you have to have working during those additional days?
Right now, we're
Is it 2 or 1?
scheduling 4 people for
4
each,
people? Or
right,
for the whole time?
yes, for
Okay.
each of those days. Again, this is brand new to everybody across the state. We've not done this before. It's a lot of guesswork on our part. We are going to keep track of our expenses just for early voting. So next year, we'll have a much better idea of how to plan our budget.
The money from the state, you said, and we got it. You mean you got the promise of it, or has it come in?
No, the money has come in,
Okay,
yep. And we have already spent a little bit of that on things that we feel that we do need for early voting, but also items that will, obviously, we're gonna keep and use continually. You know what I'm saying? It's not just a one
right,
One
signs
shot.
and stuff.
disposable kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like we've purchased laptops, we purchased a sign to place outside of the town hall that says early voting here. Other items like that. And part of that money that we're receiving, that grant money will go towards what do I want to say? Salary or workers that we have to hire.
And that will be in the current fiscal year.
Correct.
So is yours and Suzanne's expectation that that will be expended by the end of this fiscal year, by June
The
30th?
state is requiring us to spend it by December 2024. So we don't necessarily need to use all of it for the presidential preference primary. If we don't use all of it, we can hang on to it and use it as we see fit to the end of December.
Okay. Wondering about potential for budget offset to the numbers you're presenting tonight.
Not gonna be much.
And nothing in the current fiscal year because it's all toward additional equipment, additional expense for the early voting setup.
Right.
And infrastructure, if you will, yeah. Okay.
Wish we had those machines we used to have. The whole thing would take 1 day, everybody would vote, and you'd know by the end of the evening who won.
That's like one-arm bandit machines or something.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Close the
then,
curtain
and
like
every
that.
now and then they pay off the jackpot.
Yeah, and it worked.
Love to those things.
Be nice if we could outsource the elections, get it out of the hands of the government.
I bet the registrars wish that too. How are you guys all adapting to an intrusion in your lives, if you will?
Well, personally, right now, I just want to get through the PPP in April, 4 days. Let's see how those 4 days are gonna go. Then we will have a much better sense of what will happen in August and November. Again, right now, we've never done this before. We've only just received the latest handbook, early in-person handbook from the state. So the state is still working as well, you know, what's required of us. So, Secretary's been having conference calls with us every couple of weeks, just to keep us informed, answer questions. And there are a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns, again, at this point.
Does it throw wrinkles into town referenda?
No,
That's like same old as far as. the
Right,
way-
there's no early voting for referendum for local. Thank you, and please don't make that suggestion.
Don't worry. Oh, they're so excited to come out and vote early for the budget, right?
So I'm just curious, locations would still be held here.
Yes.
I mean, I look at these towns where they do them at their schools, and they're going to be doing this all week at their schools, and the impact it's gonna have.
Towns are scrambling right
Yeah.
now. We're gonna have our early voting location upstairs, whether it be in the common room or, possibly in the selectmen's conference room. Again,
Part of it is that the state just installed new, high security fiber networks into this building, so moving it to another building would be problematic at best.
Okay.
Right. I just wondered if Suzanne has anything to add.
she there?
Yeah.
Well, as far as, can you hear me?
Yes.
As far as technology goes, the state is working on a new module, if you will, for the centralized voter registration system. And they're saying that early voting will be, it will be necessary to use CVRS, which is why the location is important. And one of the reasons why technology and getting new laptops was important, we have to actually use CVRS to process voters. So we're anxiously awaiting that and the training for that. And, it's like Christine said, it's hard to actually know what it's going to be like until we do it. So in a weird sort of way, we're looking forward to the early voting for the presidential preference primary, just so we can get out of this limbo and know what it's going to be like. And so it's a lot. It's a lot.
Can I just ask what the acronym stands for, CVRS? I'm sorry, I don't know, so.
It's Connecticut Voter Registration, what was it? System.
Okay,
And basically, that's how we register people.
okay. Thank you.
Right, it's also gonna be used for early voting when you come in, it's a check-in, so we can check off immediately that you voted early.
Okay. That's exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions?
The only other question I have is kind of like, for the long term, and that's, do we have the space upstairs for all the extra?
I got the assignment may be coming to you for, construction loans for building storage space for registrars for just this reason.
Construction loans?
Well, whatever, right? I'm making this up as I go along.
Bank is now open.
Yeah. I'm gonna see what we can do.
Your credit is, I don't know.
Well, can we use the trailer
We're
that
gonna
they
go
use
through
for the
public
ambulance?
works first to see if we can do it, economically. Cheap.
Don't let them cut any of those new wires. Security system.
Well, Steph, registrars don't have enough storage space. So we've approached DPW, Peter, to see if we can get an additional spot upstairs. The next thing that's coming for us are new tabulators. That's what you put your ballot in, that's what counts everything, for us at the end of the night. Those machines we're using now, we got them new in '06. They're pretty much at the end of their lifespan. So it's in the works with the state to get something brand new. No, the towns are not gonna pay for it. So we will be getting those. But they're big. And they need to be locked up. We just don't have the space for things. So, that's just an aside, has nothing to do with early voting stuff, but this is coming up where we'll be getting new equipment at some point, and it needs to be stored safely, locked.
Any other questions? Do you have any other comments, Suzanne?
No, it's interesting that we can still complete our sentences when we're not sitting next to each other. We're 5,000 miles apart. It's good to see everyone.
Glad you made it out of Boston.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we all set now? So we will move on to C, which is 0131, the Board of Finance. Are we doing that, Donna?
Yes, whatever your pleasure is, you have a request form in front of you with your 4 line items. Whatever your pleasure is.
Actually, a good segue. Because this year, last year, whatever, we budgeted a contingency because we didn't know how the spending would work on early voting. And it's not showing up, Donna. I think I asked you about this, but it's not showing on this, is it?
Oh, no, you tell me, do you want to add a line for contingency?
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is that still in the Board of Finance?
Yes, that's in the Board of Finance budget.
Okay, cause it doesn't show here.
You're correct, because this is just 0131. The
Okay, the
contingency line
contingency is,
is a different department, but
okay.
that is under the realm of your responsibility.
Well, I don't know if it's suitable to talk about it here, but I think, is it?
Yes, it's under the realm of your responsibility,
Okay,
so I will tell yes.
so we did it before the clarity before we had any clarity. And the timing was a little questionable too. And you guys have crossed a lot of the Ts for us in this process of presenting your budget and all your thoughtfulness on what costs are. And I know that that's been a lot of work and a lot of, as you say, talks with the Secretary of the State and everything else. So the reason we did that was because we thought it would maybe come in handy if we were really off and running with this and had no underpinning. The state did step forward with that grant that you guys successfully got. So I'm thinking either we leave it there as a sort of pressure release valve in case the early voting is not if there are issues that we're not expecting. But in addition to that, I think it's a good line to have for expertise that the Board of Finance specifically may need in the year ahead or in the process with the next budget year in becoming educated and talking about bonding in a more intelligent way as a discussion, because I don't really think we're fully prepared. It's been a long time between bonding episodes in this town, and Pete referenced it in the present to speak, but that was a 3.5 million bond. I think if we were to bond, the heavy call for repairs at both schools or something like that, it's a discussion that we really haven't had as a town. And I think the Board of Finance needs to maybe consult with some experts on bonding and that area of the financial world that we really haven't, as a town, had much experience with. So I'm thinking a sum there in case some of that bears a cost is smart. And meanwhile, it has a dual purpose of also being a release valve for that. That's my view anyway.
And was it 15,000 last year?
Yes,
Okay.
And that we're all pretty tight, so we're not gonna go off and spend it. Unless it's a good reason.
okay, good.
Okay, any other comments?
Pretty simple budget.
Ready to move on then? to D 0132, the treasurer's presentation. Doug Roberts.
Hi, good evening. I'm Doug Roberts, and there's a 0% increase for all line items with the exception of one item that I did add. And that could be earmarked in the town's contingency fund based on recent experiences with M&T Bank. M&T Bank basically agreed not to charge any service fees back in March of 2023 for the entire calendar year. And then early January, they charged us just over $9,000 for 2023 for all the service fees. And they agreed that that they would refund that money, so we're working on getting that money returned back to us. In October of 2023, they said that they would not have any service fees to the town in 2024. They could only make that decision on that in that calendar year. So based on what happened in January, I asked them to reconfirm that they would not be charging us fees in 2024. They agreed that's still the case. So this is for 2025, the 6 months there, just in case they do decide to charge us fees. 2 of the months in 2023 were just over $1,000 a month in fees. So I figured, that's a good average as far as with escalation and all that. Just like I said, earmark that as contingency. If they did come back and decide to charge us the full amount in 2025, I would ask if there's ways that we could, save on those fees, but I guess we'll get there.
Is this standard practice with all the banks?
Well, a lot of the local banks have been swallowed up by bigger banks.
Right.
And so, right now, they're not charging us fees. There's not a lot of options as far as, what the town needs. They need a full service bank. There's really not that many options out there. And we have a lot of accounts.
Here, is it okay?
Yep.
Hi Doug.
Hi.
Welcome aboard. Is there, in your experience, and I don't know how much you've looked around in the way town by town and what other treasurers are dealing with or whatever. Do we have a more complicated branch of accounts than any given New England town that's that has deep roots like we do? Or, do we have a lot of complicated stuff because we have a complicated history kind of thing? Is that why we have so many?
Well, each budget basically has their own account, and that's a normal practice, I would say. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know what other towns are doing as far as what banks are choosing, but there's not a lot of banks to choose from. We would still need a local bank presence. We get a Brinks trucks delivered, so it's not like you can just, pick a bank in the Midwest and have them do that. And there's really not any assurances that once you switch the bank, that bank wouldn't turn around and charge you fees, 6 months later. Changing banks would be a huge effort. The system that we use, it integrates all the routing numbers, the account numbers, people that have different approvals, all that, so it's not it's not an easy change. It would take months to change everything over.
I'm sure. In fact, didn't we change not that long ago? We were we with People's United before this?
That's because Peoples was eaten by M&T.
I know, but I
Then
mean,
Peoples said they eaten
I'm
something
well
else
aware.
that we were before that.
United Peoples.
yeah, it was, and then Tallinn Bank and then Rockville.
Oddly enough, they're doing the same thing with my accounts. They keep charging me and then refunding me.
Yeah, that's what
how
they're
mine
doing
is,
on
yeah.
fees. And that's the other question I was gonna ask, when you said you had talked to them and gotten this forgiveness of fees or whatever you wanna call it. what was their demeanor? Are they kind of saying, okay, yeah, we didn't notify you significantly, but next year, look out? Or did they sort of say, no, we want to continue serving the town of Wellington and
Well, it's very
Maintaining.
short responses from the senior vice president that I'm interfacing with. So you don't get a whole lot from him, but basically he's confirmed that they would not be charging fees in 2024, and the money would be coming back for 2023, but it takes multiple approvals to refund the money as opposed to taking the money.
Of course, that's very.
thanks for that.
Any other questions for Doug? All right, if not, we'll be past going on to, under new business D 0135 Board of Assessment Appeals. Donna, you get to do that one.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So I worked a little bit with Kara, our assessor, and with Ed Tatum, who is on the Board of Assessment Appeals. The Board of Assessment Appeals is a 3-member board. They are elected, compensated officials. So they have a salary line, they have a line for the clerk to take meeting minutes. They meet twice a year. And the increase that they are requesting is in their expense line. And that is for a member to attend a seminar.
Is that a relatively new member or something, or is that,
I'm thinking it's one of the new members
okay?
that came on, just joined. Was just elected.
Any other questions for Donna? If not, we'll be going on to, F 0161 Conservation Commission. Carol Jordan and Kathy Demers will be presenting that. Carol?
Yep.
Okay, you're up to do your
Okay.
presentation.
Yeah, I think ours is gonna be, after all of these discussions about everybody's problems, I think ours is pretty straightforward. What we present is, under the different categories of expenditure is not necessarily solid, because things change, as circumstances change. Or we may spend the monies in ways that are not exactly in, as outlined in our budget request. But I think the important thing to note is that we are not asking for any additional funds, and that this is the 13th year in a row that we are asking for $1,500. So given inflation, you're actually getting a good deal. If anybody has any questions about things that are outlined, we switched a little bit more money into programs and outreach as we've started working with the library on some programs involving conservation projects. And we did notice in doing some field work that some of the boundaries between town-owned open space lands and adjoining properties may need some review and updating. So those are areas of particular concern coming up for now. We're granted monies under ARPA for major construction projects on bridges and the like on the parklands. So I think if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
You're referring to the verification of boundaries and some
Yeah.
of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, there were some timber harvest coming up, and when the Kathy and I believe it was Jackie Kulig went out to look at some of those things, areas that were in part of the timber harvest areas. They found that they were having difficulty finding the boundary with some of the owned open space. and the adjoining properties.
Well, we sure appreciate the sweat equity you guys put into keeping the trails upgraded and all the work that you do yourselves. We
Yeah.
know a lot's going on there.
Yeah, and just, we're still looking for, an additional member and 2 alternates, and, we've had some changes of personnel, so on the commission, so that we could use some people who like to get out and do that kind of thing of rebuilding the bridges and maintaining the trails. So if you know of anybody who's interested in conservation and that kind of hands-on construction work, we'd, be more than happy to, entertain some new faces on the commission, and just to come out and work on work days.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for Carol? All right, thank you, Carol.
Okay,
All right, next we have G 0171, 0172, 0176, planning and zoning, ZBA, IW, Mike Diamato. Made it just in time, Mike.
I was paying attention through the other side of the door. So good evening, Mike D'Amato, and I'm here to speak to and answer any questions you have regarding the planning and zoning and other land use commission budgets. There's a couple of changes that you'll see, or if you're comparing to the budget to last year. So the first one is that you'll notice there's a new budget line, I guess, which is in the planning and zoning line 171,500. So that is not something that was previously carried in this department budget, but was formerly in the building department. So even though that line and that expenditure is new for this as of this year, the way that it's shown, there's a $368 increase, which is part of a contractual increase for the portal that the town uses for building permits, land use applications, all the Board of Finance applications, CIP, ARPA, all that whole portal. It's managed through us and through me. So to keep better tabs on the contracts, because the way that a lot of vendors are going now, they are asking for multi-year contracts, and it'll allow us to keep a better handle on that. So we moved that, but it's not new. So that's the $368, and the other line that you'll see requesting an increase is shown under the zoning reg revision project. But essentially it is again, a license increase or an increase associated with an existing contract for a program that the department uses, which is what allows us to make all the property files accessible to the public. So a couple of years ago, the servers that used to sit in this corner here, the one that we stored our files on crashed. And in working with the town's IT vendor, we determined it would be cheaper, both upfront and long-term, to host these documents in the cloud versus buying and supporting a new server here. So I believe in 2021, we moved to the cloud-based program. And so this doesn't fund anything new. It's maintenance of existing services. We have one other increase to an existing product that we have, but we're gonna basically capture that and absorb it with the existing budget. And then for ZBA and inland wetlands, those are no increases requested. The only other thing that I would note, just maybe of interest, there was a bill that was proposed and will be heard at the Capitol on Wednesday, which will allow towns to post legal notices online. You'll see that we are carrying a lot of money across multiple groups for that. And it's one of those things that we don't know how much it's gonna cost. Don't know what the volume will be, and we don't know what the applications will entail, so we can't really estimate it. And so some years were high, some years were low, but like for Quincy, we carry $2,000. So hopefully, if, you know, there's a lot of support for that, and some of these other things, will allow us to no longer need to carry, so much of that money with a question mark. And I'll answer any questions you have or go through anything else that it would be helpful.
I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are you surprised?
No.
On the revision project, I'm just kind of wondering about that because we haven't spent anything in the last 2 years, although we've budgeted and now we're upping it. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what's the deal there?
So I will give you the deal as best as I understand it. So the zoning reg revision project, that line has been in the budget for many years. I'm not sure how it got there with that title, because the idea would be that it would be used to revise the zoning regulations. So most of the zoning reg updates were done in conjunction with the town's, the commission's attorney, Howard Sage, which comes out of the land use attorney line. And $1,500 doesn't get you a lot when you're dealing with attorneys. So, no harm to any attorneys that may be on the board, as I'm asking you to look at my budget. But, so I don't know how that was used historically. But between the codification and some of the other digitization stuff that we've done over the last couple of years, that's what these funds have gone to. And part of the ARPA, one of the ARPA projects we have is to codify the zoning regs and the ordinances. And so this line will become where that lives. The annual updates and all the stuff associated with that will come out of that line. But we have done all the zoning reg revisions in-house, myself and the commission. We haven't used outside consultants or anything for that. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, you said the codifying would come out of here. You're upping it, so I'm assuming.
The increase is related to Laserfish, which is the program that we use to host our files. So that it's a 30, I think I cited it in here. Yeah, the increase is $3,250. So I'm asking for $2,000 because I'm gonna absorb the rest of the increase with that existing line, because as you stated, we haven't spent it fully previously. So that'll bring me to the 3,500, which will cover the total.
Okay, so going forward, will that be 3,500 plus a year?
No, this will be the subscription rate, and actually, since the town has purchased or acquired Laserfish, this is the first increase. So no, this will cover our operating costs moving forward.
Okay, and so if we, do you think that there's a predictable number on the advertising, like rather than budgeting the full 2,000? Are you nervous that it will take a while to take place to convert to non-print legal notices or whatever?
The bill's been advertised or been proposed a couple of times and has failed. But CCM and some others have decided to back it this time, so we're hopeful. But you'll see last year, we had an average number of applications and we expended about $1,600. And really, as you know, the type of application sort of necessitates how descriptive we have to be. And when you're paying by how much you write, a simple application is less, but we average around $100 per advertisement. And we're required to advertise 3 times for each application, 2 before, 1 after. So our cost per application is approximately $300 to legal notices. So we just don't know, what that will look like.
Okay, and the document preservation, that started with some extra money we applied to it this year, I think. But I was wondering, does that sunset at some point? Or is that likely to continue at $5,000 a year? into some,
So it was
Or
originally
perpetuity.
requested to, we had the one-time capital expenditure, which we've completed and all the documents have been scanned. That was put in as a budget request last year as a way to fund the additional beyond what was the lion's share of what was able to be done. The intent is that after this coming fiscal year, because the minimum that will allow us to be able to get them to do the project is basically 10,000. So I have it funded this year, and the next year will allow me the last 10,000 to get what we need to. So after that, we should effectively be completely digitized, and that line can come off.
great, that's what I was wondering. Good work. And can we talk about economic development, or do you wanna go? If any,
I don't know if Chelsea has any more questions regarding that, we could go on to it. Are there any more questions regarding zoning and the wetlands?
Oh, one last question, and that's just the, you know, the tracking of the spending, based on your full budget, and we're more than half the way through the fiscal year. Is that backloaded stuff? I mean, is that a lot of licensing and stuff that you pay at the end of the year, or
Yeah, so,
end of the fiscal year meaning?
some of it is annual, so like Laserfish does not run on a calendar or fiscal year. I think, I don't know when we pay that exactly, I think we just did, so that'll come up. And the permit system support, I'm working with them on that because I'm a little uncomfortable with them asking us to sign a 3-year contract to lock in, a rate to prevent what they now call an uplift, when they haven't demonstrated what the rate increases are going to be for, but yet you're asking me to pay, even if it's 2 or 3% in 2026. But they can't tell me what they're gonna do in 2026 to provide that. So I've told them that they need to give us that information before we're gonna do. So that hasn't been paid. And then, so PCC dues, that's another one. Effective last year, planning and zoning and ZBA commission members are required by statute to attend training. And they need to do it, now it's been relaxed a little bit, but they're required to attend at least 4 hours, and they designate for what topics. So, there's several trainings that are offered throughout the state, and we now are obligated to send all of our commission members and alternates. So that's based upon the availability, and some of it's free, some of it's in person. So again, that's a little bit hard to judge.
Okay. And thanks for explaining that about the permit systems.
Yeah, no.
Really helpful.
All right, that's it. You can move on to economic development.
So, economic development, no increases, everything is proposed to be the same, and the one line budget basically has, the contract with my firm, the services that we provide. I don't know if it was separate or if it was part of that, but they were previously budgeting for a recording secretary, so we do the minutes. So there's no recording secretary, no expenditures associated. And then the commission has, started through a welcome signage project, and the idea was to pay for that, sort of chip away, rather than purchasing everything up front. So we've started with that, they went out to bid, and are working through that. So there's money in there to basically pay for it as they go. They don't have any other real expenditures, as far as, legal notices or anything online, because they don't have any obligation for that. So there's no increases associated.
Any questions?
I was kind of wondering about the status of the commission, like if it's kind of, I know it's had some absences and everything, and I don't think they have a chair. They have maybe an acting chair now. Do they have a chair? I think, so I just wondered, is the status such that, because if it's sort of a building year or a building couple of years on EDC, sometimes you don't need the full contingent of the budget, because there's no one to really do due diligence on the spending. I'm just wondering, and heaven knows we need to invest in economic development in this town. I just wonder if you can address that.
Yeah, so, you are correct, there, it's been a little bit tricky trying to kind of figure things out and, frankly, if I had to guess, I think that following the warehouse application that happened last year, they were probably wondering to themselves, how do we figure out how to go forward? Because they were, a little bit uncomfortable with how to figure, you take a stand on some type of economic development and, there's obviously people that are pro and people that are not, and I think that kind of made people question things a bit. We had some members with some personal issues that took them away for a little while, and other folks that are volunteering on other boards. So the scheduling was a little bit challenging, but, in January, we had, sort of a new reinvigorated meeting for the beginning of the year, and we're gonna be kicking off the strategic plan that the commission received ARPA funds for, and has a consultant that they've brought on board to help with. So we've also had additional residents reach out and indicate that they're interested in serving. So I think we have at least 2 people that in the last month or so have said they're interested in joining. So I think that moving forward, there's gonna be sort of a new, fresh charge there, and certainly as the strategic plan is kicked off, the whole point of that process is to strategize with other boards and commissions, Board of Finance, P and Z, et cetera. So as they start to interface with those other groups, I think you'll see that. So they may not be meeting on a monthly basis, depending on what's going on, but, we've had very frank conversations about that, and I think there's certainly still a commitment there.
Can you speak at all about that? Because, I don't know, Christina does, I'm sure, but what the full amount of the ARPA grant was for energizing local businesses and stuff that people applied for, what, $15,000 grants, I think they were. I just wonder what you guys, is that like, what you have to say about that? Did it energize the local business people? Is it still kind of midway in that process, or is it finished, or, if you could just update us a little?
Yep, so they were able to, small businesses and nonprofits were able to, submit the application for up to, but they didn't all request and receive the full grant amount. So I don't know exactly how much, I can tell you, how much was actually, provided. But there was a fair amount, I think about $60,000 that was returned back to ARPA. Because, based upon eligibility of those who submitted and then the funds requested, we didn't end up needing it all. Some of it was for proactive stuff, and we have the information, I would be happy to.
Sure.
But some of it was for proactive things like, making adjustments to, technology and infrastructure so that they'd be better prepared should something like this happen again, right? The ability to order food online became something that people weren't interested in until COVID, right? And others were, because we've had other issues with staffing, we've had to put off putting on a new roof. And so they use those funds to sort of get back into their normal swing of capital expenditures. And then lost revenue replacement obviously is the primary. So we did do a survey, sort of a follow-up, asking people to talk about how the funds that were provided to the town affected them. Was it hugely positive? Have they been used yet? Et cetera. So we do have that. I think in total there were 13 grants that were given, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, we do have the information. I'd be happy to.
And that was it, the original nut, was it 300 grand or around that?
I think it was 250.
I think 275. It was between two, it was probably like 230 in the end.
Okay.
More than 200, less than 300.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Mike? All right, so we'll be moving on to, I have a presentation of the state of Connecticut, the 2024 economic forecast and recent census data. Anybody wants any copies? Everybody's got these in their packets. I have more people out there. If anybody would like any, you can grab that. And I don't even know if it's necessary to do it because Peter pretty much ran over everything I was going to say. So it was quite ironic that you had that during present to speak. But so this was written up by Fred Carstensen. He's the director of the Connecticut Center for Economic Analysis and a professor of finance and economics at UConn School of Business. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the beginning of it, and then at your own, you can read the rest of it. I mean, basically what the rest of it is about what the state can do to sustain and to develop more growth within Connecticut. But he starts out by saying, congratulations to Governor Ned Lamont and the legislature. They have put Connecticut's fiscal house in order. But fiscal health is unlikely to be sustainable when the state has a sticky economy. Now they must tackle the challenge of restoring Connecticut's economic vitality, competitiveness, and growth. Since 2017, Connecticut's economy has seen only 1% real inflation adjusted growth. The nation's economy grew 38% through 2022. There has been no growth in jobs. Payroll employment is now where it was in June 2017. Taking a longer perspective, the performance is worse. Payroll employment in 2023 is merely 20,000 above where it was in February 1989 and 22,000 below where it was in March 2008. That's 35 years of essentially no net job creation. The story is the same for gross state product, GSP, during the last 15 years, essentially no growth. The result of this economic stagnation is that Connecticut's economy as a share of the national economy has shrunk markedly since 2008 by nearly 30%, from 1.6% of the US gross domestic product to 1.14%. With the fiscal house in order, it is clearly time to prioritize the economy. So that's about all that I'm going to read from that report. And then the other thing that I've included as well is census data. And the back of the sheet, I highlighted the section of income and poverty, which shows that the median household income in the town of Willington being $85,893, but the per capita income in past 12 months in 2022 dollars between 2018 and 2022 is $43,822. And in Willington, the persons in poverty is at 13.5%, which is extremely high. You look at a town like Southington, which, I mean, there's more money in Southington, there's more businesses there, but they have 4.3% poverty rate there. Part of the reason our poverty rate is high is we do have students from UConn here. But, you know, the thing is, you know, don't look at this as data. You have to look at this as our neighbors. And these are the people that we're going to be telling that we're going to need money to fund some of these capital improvement programs that we definitely need. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, as we move forward, that we're going to use discretion and how the money's spent, who the money's given to, and it truly fits the needs of the town of Willington and the people that are living here. And that's basically all that I have to say regarding this. But I'll read the rest of the report and you'll see what the state of Connecticut can do. It kind of leaves, I think, all of us in a kind of a precarious situation because of the situation that the state is in and its economy. All right, so we will move on now to, let's see. Correspondence? Do we have?
Should we do the financial report? You don't, is it, because this is a regular meeting, not, it's a budget, you
Okay.
know, it's a regular meeting. That's in the packet.
You don't have chaps here.
It's on it. Usually. Tells us.
Motion to add it to the, agenda.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like-
sorry. I moved to add the January financial report to the agenda.
Second. Okay, Lisa?
Roll call vote, Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Ms. Miller. Yes. Ms. Mallows.
Yeah.
Mr. Ross.
Yes.
Ms. Summers. Yes. Ms. Ronco.
Yes.
All in favor, unanimous.
You presenting the staff?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
All right, the usual revenue and expenditure report for the month of January. Happy to tell you that there are no expenditure concerns at this time on the revenue side of the budget. Interest rates are still high. And we have another category of revenue that exceeded its budget, and that is the license fees and permits line. And that is because we had some unanticipated advance tax. And we had, more building permits than we budgeted to receive. So, revenue is strong. That's all I have.
Did you say advanced tax payments?
Conveyance tax,
Oh,
a property sold, a commercial property sold,
thanks.
changed hands.
And you also gave us the 5-year look back for the updated with the
Yes.
ones that
I
from last week
updated
that
it.
you're doing every week for us, right? Yeah,
I,
thank
this
you.
one is updated for the ambulance payroll
Okay,
without offsets. I
Okay.
didn't add all these little budgets on because lots of them came in with no increase. So there's only one change on the look back table,
okay.
which is the ambulance,
Fire engine.
fire ambulance.
Got your back, but.
Is anybody still reviewing it? Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Donna. We have present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain the forum. We have anybody to speak? Yeah, any communication? No communication, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
We-
Go on.
No, I just wondered if we were doing good and well for, I was just gonna do a shout out to Claire Torrey, the longtime serving probate court judge.
Anything else under new
Is
wellness?
is anyone seconding the move?
I was about to get that.
the alternates of number seven.
All in favor, aye?
I,
Any no's? Okay, unanimous. See, they had it off right now.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
I mean, like it was, oh, you, what do you mean?
I have a separate file.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I don't use the usual one.
You know, when you do
So I
it
had
like
it cut off and I can shit up and stick it in there.
What sparked it was not long ago, it was how we
No,
had a bunch of.
we're gonna pass it, pass unanimously tonight. Yes. Just you wait.
So.
Such a collaborative board. It is kinda.
Yeah. Nobody reads, $300 for the, you could say that we paid a newspaper $300.
Which one?
Our highest circulation
Oh,
here,
22nd.
every year, I look at the
Okay.
rates to see if we change.
Yeah, we talked about.
We have to run in the
Oh,
dark.
yeah, I didn't
And so
remember.
depending on the day, they charge us for a
Both
statewide
weeks,
run.
but-
Yeah.
We'll just do the zone.
Sure, I don't know where.
We have like,
put that,
it's
that I
like
can-
600.
March Madness.
600 subscribers. That's our highest. Everybody else is less than that.
Who knew?
Well, we're just going through that with the,
You know, where's that?
with the revenue. Janice is having trouble finding the right person. to
It's
get
like
in.
that's the board of
Going
ed.
through that Thursday,
Yeah,
Thursday.
that's